Research team has discovered treasure maps and the danger to come. Could these maps finally be the answer to all the unanswered questions about this treasure? Bingo Minerva, the lead researcher, had a meeting with Chuck McDougall, who talks about his time spent in the Philippines and refers them to Robert Curtis, a treasure hunter who has maps relating to the missing riches. McDougall and Curtis commenced their search in Fort Santiago after receiving permission to do so from President Aquino. During their time there, they discover marble and flecks of gold. Nevertheless, their excavation is suddenly halted, which has led to rumors that political influence was involved. In addition, the team uncovered genuine treasure maps and danger was revealed, which show that the wealth is quite valuable. In spite of the obstacle, they have indicated that they are willing to go back to the Philippines in order to have the artifacts examined by experts. Bingo Minerva, the head researcher, has a meeting with Chuck McDougall, a guy who is connected to Robert Curtis and who headed a treasure expedition in the Philippines in 1988. The expedition was looking for a lost fortune. McDougall recounts his time spent in the Philippines, during which he was a witness to the widespread corruption that existed under Ferdinand Marcos's administration. In the end, McDougall discovered the name of Robert Curtis, who claimed to have maps relating to the missing riches. They were able to secure a permit from President Aquino and get started looking for gold at Fort Santiago, thanks to McDougall's contacts and Curtis's expertise. It is not apparent, however, whether or not they were successful in their search for riches during their journey. The excavation team discusses their findings at Fort Santiago, where they found marble and gold flakes at the 40-meter level. The finds were made at the same level. However, they were taken by surprise when the president issued the order to halt the excavation, which led to speculations that important senators were behind the action so that they could claim the wealth for themselves. In reality, the president had given the unexpected order to stop the excavation. The group also reveals that they were successful in collecting authentic treasure maps from Marcos's office, which strengthens the believability of their inquiry because it demonstrates that they have been paying attention to detail. The potential value of the treasure is astounding, as seen by these maps, and one place is thought to have treasure worth $5 billion in U.S. money. The group was unable to travel back to the Philippines and reclaim any of the wealth that was there, despite the fact that they had the opportunity to do so. It is stated that if one follows the directions on the map, they will be able to locate buried Nazi riches that are worth millions of dollars and that were stolen from a bank by Hitler's troops. It is one of the hundreds of documents from World War II that were once secret, but have now been declassified and made available to the general public. The map that was said to contain clues to a never-found treasure was kept under wraps for a significant amount of time in the Netherlands National Archives. It is hypothesized that the assets that were stolen from the bank in the city of Arnhem were, among other things, watches, gems, and jewelry. It has been reported by the NL Times that it is thought that the map identifies the precise site in Gelderland where the stolen goods were hidden. It would appear that the treasure is buried somewhere in the vicinity of Omeren and Linden, both of which are located in the Netherlands. According to a statement that was given by Annette Walkens of the National Archives, which was televised in the Netherlands, there was an explosion at a branch of the Rotterdamsche Bank on the Veldperweg during the defense of Arnhem. This information was provided by Annette Walkens. It was observed at the scene of the crime that German soldiers were slipping items into their coats. It is a widely held opinion that the riches was initially hidden in munitions boxes before being buried in Omeren. This theory has gained significant traction in recent years. There is a possibility that treasure hunters or the Nazis themselves tracked down the stolen items days or weeks after they conducted the crime and recovered them. The Dutch authorities tried to find it by bringing a Nazi officer back to the Netherlands, but their efforts were unsuccessful, and the items were never located. The documents also offer specifics on the cruelty that took place in concentration camps, in addition to minutes from meetings amongst cabinet ministers. According to a statement released by the National Archives, the archive contains harrowing stories of torture, humiliation, and revenge against this group of illicit Dutch people. The leg irons that were used to bind prisoners together, sometimes for weeks at a time, are visible proof of the frequently brutal conditions that existed in these post-war institutions. In addition to this, they stated, there are files about the resistance against the Japanese occupation, about conscientious objectors and deserters, and about a conspiracy against Captain Westerling. During the Battle of Arnhem in the Netherlands in 1944, German soldiers are said to have buried a haul of items that they had seized. The treasure map purports to illustrate where these valuables are buried. It asserts that the objects, which may include jewelry, watches, and diamonds, were buried close to the community of Omeren, which is located in the middle of the Gelderland region of the Netherlands. Along with hundreds of other documents pertaining to World War II, the map, which had been kept concealed for many years in the National Archives of the Netherlands, has recently been made available to the general public. According to the NL Times, despite the fact that a great number of searches have been carried out over the course of the years in an effort to identify the hall's location, nothing has been found. On the other hand, it's possible that treasure hunters came across it first. At one point, the Dutch government even considered bringing a Nazi officer back from another country to help with the search, but their efforts were useless, and nothing was found. It's also possible that random bystanders found it and didn't report it, or that Nazi scavengers found it before the war was done and didn't report it. Both of these scenarios are possible. During the heist at the bank, it was said that one specialist told a local television that German soldiers put loot in their coats. These papers also contain documentation from a committee that reviewed allegations of torture carried out at Dutch prison facilities, geared towards individuals accused of collaborating with the enemy. The document contains harrowing descriptions of acts of torture, humiliation, and retribution that were carried out against a group of illicit Dutch people. During the decades that followed World War II, it was a popular pastime that, at one point, came perilously near to becoming a national obsession in a country where Japanese soldiers were accused of looting and hiding enormous sums of gold and other treasures during their control of the Philippines. During that time, the Philippines was under Japanese occupation. The Philippines were ruled by Japan during this time period, hence they were under their dominion. It is reported that General Tomoyuki Yamashita and his forces stored tons of gold and other seized valuables in underground caverns and tunnels in the northern section of the country, with the intention of retrieving all of it after the war was over. This is the premise around which a local tale is built. However, Japan did finally surrender, and after being captured by U.S. forces, Yamashita was tried for war crimes and sentenced to death. He was put to death in 1946, taking the mystery of the location of the gold heist with him to the grave with him. Subscribe now for more thrilling discoveries, and got that notification bell to be the first to know when the next exciting story is up. Years later, when Rogelio Rojas was still a youngster, he encountered a Japanese guy who told him that his father had fought as a soldier under Yamashita and that his father had once drawn him a map indicating the buried riches. The man also informed Rogelio that his father had once given him the map. Treasure hunters have been known to let their imaginations run wild whenever they hear stories of buried Nazi loot. This is not the first time that this has happened. The year before, a disagreement erupted between those who were interested in finding Nazi gold and historians who claimed the fans were looking in the incorrect location. The Silesian Bridge Foundation had been conducting excavations on the grounds of a mansion built in the 18th century in the Polish village of Minkowski. They claimed that the grounds contained 200 million pounds worth of Nazi gold and other treasures that had been seized by Himmler's SS. The foundations claimed that the site was located in a war diary written by an SS officer near the conclusion of the Second World War, was the spark that set off the controversy. However, historians who were invited to verify the diaries by the organization stated that their examination was not completely positive. New discovery leaves research teams stunned. Find out more now by clicking on the next video. What may have taken force to find now looks closer than one can imagine. Research team are finally one step closer to the treasure. In the course of their exploration of the waterfalls, John and his colleagues uncover a significant discovery. John, who is thrilled by this discovery, has come to the conclusion that the gorilla face that they had previously found is directing them to these box markers, which suggest a lower plunge pool below. The group finds additional evidence in support of their hypothesis when they use a magnetometer to locate a big concentration of metal to the right of the waterfall. They come to the conclusion that draining the plunge pool will reveal a possible symbol of a golden flower and will confirm the existence of a tunnel network. The team believes that they are now one step closer to uncovering treasure as a result of this discovery. Yet, they are also aware of the hazards that are still to come. During the course of their exploration of the waterfalls, John and his colleagues came across a collection of Japanese box markers. These indicators point to the possible existence of 5 treasure chests, each of which is stuffed with riches. John, who is ecstatic with their find, thinks that the gorilla face they discovered earlier is pointing to these box markers, which in turn point to a lower plunge pool below. John has a hunch that there is a tunnel hidden beneath the waterfalls, and that this tunnel could be concealing a considerable amount of treasure. The group finds additional evidence in support of their hypothesis when they use a magnetometer to locate a big concentration of metal to the right of the waterfall. They decide to empty the plunge pool in order to get a better look, and in the process, they discover what may be a golden lily emblem, which confirms the existence of a tunnel system. The group believes that they are now one step closer to locating Yamashita's gold as a result of this discovery. Nevertheless, they are also aware of the risks that are still to come. During World War II, Yamashita is said to have stolen gold, diamonds, and historical artifacts from 12 different countries located in East and Southeast Asia. He then supposedly buried these valuables in a number of secret places throughout the Philippines. But Yamashita never got the opportunity to collect his loot, because in 1946, the Americans found him guilty of war crimes and sentenced him to death by hanging. A locksmith named Rogelio Rojas made the discovery in 1971 of one of Yamashita's hidden hoards. The hoard contained nearly a ton of gold in the form of gold bars, as well as a Buddha statue. And as if finding a ton of gold wasn't enough, Rojas later found out that the head of the Buddha statue could be removed, and that the interior of the statue concealed handfuls of uncut diamonds. After hearing the tale, the dictator who governed the Philippines with an iron hand until 1986, Ferdinand Marcos, is said to have ordered Rojas to be kidnapped and tortured so that he would tell the whereabouts of his treasure so that he could steal it. It has been said that Marcos was successful in retrieving the majority of Yamashita's wealth, but no member of Marcos's family had ever addressed the charges in public until February 1992. Imelda Marcos, the widow of Ferdinand Marcos, is quoted as saying in a 1992 Associated Press article that her late husband had uncovered Japanese treasure after World War II, but had not declared its presence to tax authorities because the sum was so large that it would be embarrassing. It appears that the dictator concealed the gold hoard in a number of different locations, one of which was within the walls of his own residence. Imelda, who is 91 years old today, continues to refuse to divulge any information on the possible storage locations of the remaining gold. During the day, Rogelio Rojas toiled away as a lowly locksmith in Baguio, which is situated a few hours travel time north of Manila. Treasure hunting was a hobby of his that he pursued in his leisure time. In the decades that followed World War II, it was a popular sport that at one point came dangerously close to becoming a national obsession in a country where Japanese soldiers were accused of robbing and hiding huge sums of gold and other treasures during their control of the Philippines. During this period, the Philippines was under Japanese occupation. It is said that General Tomoyuki Yamashita and his soldiers hid tons of gold and other looted riches in underground caverns and tunnels in the northern part of the country, with the aim of recovering all of it after the war. This is the basis for a local legend. However, Japan did finally surrender, and after being captured by U.S. forces, Yamashita was tried for war crimes and sentenced to death. He was put to death in 1946, taking the mystery of the location of the gold heist with him to the grave with him. Years later, when Rogelio Rojas was still a youngster, he encountered a Japanese guy who told him that his father had fought as a soldier under Yamashita, and that his father had once drawn him a map indicating the buried riches. The man also informed Rogelio that his father had once given him the map. Another man he encountered had worked as an interpreter for Yamashita, and he claimed that he had once been led to hidden tunnels in Baguio, where he had seen crates of gold and silver, along with a golden statue of Buddha. This man had worked for Yamashita. In 1970, Mr. Rojas, who was 27 years old at the time, organized a team of treasure hunters to unearth the gold and began digging day and night in an abandoned mine shaft below the Baguio hospital. They were successful in their mission. It took them 7 months to break into a network of underground tunnels, where they discovered a human skeleton dressed in a Japanese army uniform, along with bayonets, rifles, and other weapons. They found one tunnel that was approximately 1.8 meters high and 9 meters long that was entirely stuffed with crates. When Mr. Rojas opened the first box, he discovered 24 individual gold bars. After that, Mr. Rojas discovered a Buddha statue that was golden in color and stood around 90 centimeters tall in a concrete vault that was located beneath the floor of the tunnel. According to his calculations, it had to weigh at least 1 ton. It took 10 people to transport the statue and the gold bars to Mr. Rojas's house, when he discovered that the head of the Buddha could be detached. From within, he extracted handfuls of rough diamonds and put them on display. Mr. Rojas began the process of selling the golden Buddha as well as some of the gold bars before he could go back into the tunnels and acquire the rest of the hidden treasure. He talked with 3 possible purchasers. They all agreed that the statue was made of 22-karat gold after one of them had it appraised. Another buyer, Joe Oihara, came to an agreement with Mr. Rojas to place a deposit on the gold statue equal to 1 million pesos, which would be around $2 million in 2022 currency. But a crew of 8 armed thugs dressed in military clothes showed up a few days later. They were there. Without having first obtained a valid search warrant, the men broke into the home of the Rojas family and stole everything within, including the gold Buddha, the diamonds, the 17 remaining gold bars, the samurai swords, and the coin collection. Even the piggy bank that the Rojas children kept their savings in was taken, and members of the family were tortured. It found out that Oihara had been staying at the home of Josefa Marcos, the mother of Ferdinand Marcos, the tyrant who proclaimed martial law the next year in the Philippines. Marcos was the president of the Philippines at the time. After hearing about the gold from Oihara, Marcos himself issued the order to conduct the search and seizure operation at Rojas's residence. Judge Pio Marcos, the president's uncle, and the one who had previously granted Mr. Rojas a permit to dig for the wealth, forewarned him that he was now in danger and that he was likely to be killed because of it. The Rojas family, led by Mr. Rojas, left the town and went into hiding. Thrilling, right? Have you subscribed? Do so now for interesting findings like this. However, a few months later, he was apprehended and taken into custody. He was also subjected to cigarette burns, electric shocks while he was being tortured. Mr. Rojas was warned that he would never see his family again if he did not sign an affidavit clearing President Marcos of any responsibility in the theft of the golden Buddha. He was also threatened with death if he did not sign the document. He was coerced into signing a different affidavit in which he denied ever reporting a theft having occurred in his residence. The locksmith was eventually let free, but when he arrived at the political rally where he was scheduled to speak, hand grenades were tossed onto the stage where he was supposed to be sitting. A number of people were murdered or severely injured in the incident. Mr. Rojas went into hiding for an additional year, but when he tried to return to his house in Baguio for the second time, he was apprehended and sentenced to 2 years in prison for illegal possession of a pistol. Research team finally makes a breakthrough in treasure hunting. Click on the next video now to find out more.